You're listening to the Wrigleyville Nation podcast. Here's your hosts, Jeremy and Pat.
Hello and welcome to the Wrigleyville Nation podcast. This is episode 383 of the podcast. My name is Jeremy Deemer and I'll be your host. I'm joined as always by my co-host. He's my cousin and he's high atop Wrigleyville tonight. How's it going, Pat?
It's going well, Jeremy. Thanks.
The Cubs have been out of town. The All-Star break is here. Home runs are being derbied right now as we record this. And
no spoiler alerts.
No, we won't. We won't be recapping that here because we've got too much Cubs news to talk about. And to help us unpack the week that was, look ahead to the week that will be. Longtime friend of the show, you know him from his work at NBC Chicago, and of course his own Cubs podcast, Home Runs and Handshakes. James Neveau, thanks for taking time out to talk Cubs with us tonight.
Yeah, we recorded whopping episode number 7 today. Far sight below you guys, but we'll get there eventually, I insist.
I don't doubt it. It's a great show. Highly recommend it. And we will get into the week that was. Oh, what a week. The tone of this podcast could have been completely different. After if things had gone different on Saturday and Sunday, because the Cubs lost 2 out of 3 to the Twins before taking 2 out of 3 from the Yankees and making it a 3-3 week. If they ended up losing 2 out of 3 there too, it would have been a completely different feeling. After that, we'll start with the Twins series first. The Cubs started the week with Shota Imanaga giving up 2 runs, settled in, pitched 6 innings, but the bullpen let the team down. Porter Hodge surrendering 5 runs in a single inning. The Cubs offense also couldn't manage any more than a single run, and they ended up going 0 for 5 with runners in scoring position in that game. Tough game all around. Game 2, the Twins win again. The Cubs offense again quiet, only 2 runs. They fell short. Hits. Yeah, they fell short, losing 4-2. And then the Cubs avoid the sweep by winning 8-1, thanks to Pete Crow Armstrong leading the offense with 2 home runs. That was his 5th multi-homer game of the season. And Colin Ray delivered a strong pitching performance. Just 1 run over 7 innings for him. And the Cubs avoid the sweep. Pat, we'll start with you and your thoughts on the Twins series.
Well, it's pretty simple, I think. When the Cubs lost 3 games this week, they scored a total of 3 runs, and in the 3 wins, they scored a total of 17 runs. I feel like that pretty much tells the tale of that. And then I guess I'd say, fortunately, when the Cubs were scoring runs, they weren't giving up runs. And when they weren't scoring runs, they were. So, I mean, you could see a week playing out where you only score 20 runs in 6 games and go 1-5 too, right? So I feel lucky that they were 3-3 when it was all said and done. Imanaga pitched okay in the first game. Nothing, fine, yeoman-like effort. Hodge just blew up. And again, he's had like 3 or 4 of those games now this year where he's just gotten totally crushed. And I guess maybe he's still hurt. I don't know. We'll find out. But I felt bad for Horton. He didn't pitch great. Didn't go super deep. But again, when you only get 4 hits and you're not going to score any runs, it doesn't really matter. Thank God, though, they won that last game, because you hate to be swept, and that's the one thing the Cubs have been good about this year, is not being swept in a series, right? So having Colin Ray, of all people, probably the weakest of the 3 starters on paper, come in and just pitch a gem, and like you said, PCA in particular, and others joined in, getting on base for him, salvaging that 3rd game. How many times have we been in the other position this year where we've won the first 2 and then lost the 3rd one and thinking, oh, we could have had a sweep. Well, this time I was just glad to get out of there with a 1-2 record, heading to New York and hoping for the best.
Yeah, against the Yankees team that really hadn't been playing all that well leading up into that series. And so it really did feel like Thursday was another one of those games for the Cubs where they've had so many of them this season where they've really needed to kind of gut one out, right? And they've needed to get like at least one win at a key time to arrest the tailspin, whatever, analogy you want to use. And they were able to do that thanks again to Colin Ray and to PCA. And I just think that it's a great example of the resilience of the team and not to like kind of, inflate their tires too much or to, blow smoke up their rear ends. But that's definitely been a hallmark of this team this season, has been that ability to kind of keep things from getting like too terribly crazy. And I felt like that was just another great example of it. And I do not have the statistics to back this up, but it feels like every time they go to Minnesota, it's like they forget to pack their bats, and like it's always this like incredible slog every time they like walk into Target Field. It kind of makes me miss the Metrodome, and then that way they could just pound some balls off the baggie and right field and not really worry about it. But man, Target Field it feels like it has not been very kind to the Chicago Cubs in recent years. I went up to a series the last time they were up there, and they just got absolutely destroyed. It was, I think, like an 11-1 game. So the fewer games they have to play in Minnesota, the better it is for me.
Yeah, I always feel like Minnesota's a worse team than they actually are, and they're always like that mediocre to above mediocre, and they just, the Cubs, when they go there, have a really tough time, and they're just a frustrating team.
Fortunately for the Cubs, or for the Twins, they play in the American League Central. So, yeah,
that's
the Tigers
is so hard.
Good, and nobody else is any good, apparently.
Yes, that is correct. And a good American League team is the New York Yankees, although they have been struggling, like you mentioned, Pat, coming into this series. The Cubs throw a bullpen game out there again, as they have to do. This team cannot afford to be just giving up a game every 5 days. That's not sustainable.
Mm-mm. No, it is at that critical juncture we talked about with Taillon going out. You can't lose. You can't forfeit one of every 5 games. It's baseball. It's not how that works, right? And here we are. The Cubs again found themselves in this awkward position of going to a bullpen game. They got blown out.
The Cody Bellinger revenge game.
Yeah, Cody Bellinger revenge game. Wicks, was he had that glimmer of light when he came off or he came back from the minors and pitched really well in the first game, like 3 or 4 innings scoreless, I think, right? And then this game back to what we had come to expect this year, and just ugly loss, and whatever. But luckily, the Cubs, who do have at least 2 good starters in Boyd and Imanaga, were fortunate enough they got to pitch the last 2 games of the series, and hopefully after the All-Star break, we'll get to pitch again to start the next series. But at some point, they're going to need some help, because it's just such a difference, obviously, when they're on the mound versus when they're not on the mound.
It was fortunate for me that I missed Friday night's game. I went to go see a production of Cinderella, and Jordan Wicks certainly turned into a pumpkin. So that at least that analogy fits, and everything was super poetic. Shout out to Beecher, Illinois, by the way. Excellent little independent theater there. Gotta love those rural towns doing that kind of stuff. Anyway, aside from my Beecher shout outs, I do have to say that series against the Yankees, like that Friday game, just felt like it did feel like an aberration to me. I know, the Yankees pounded the Cubs, but Jordan Wicks all over the place. Cody Bellinger, it's not like he's been having like a good season, right? But I don't think he's been having like a 3 home runs and almost a 4th kind of season. So that was pretty nuts to see that unfold. But then
3-2. He had 3 2-run home runs in that game. Unbelievable.
Preposterous, dude. I will, until the cows come home, I don't think the Yankees should have just been allowed to duplicate the dimensions of the old stadium. Like, I feel like they, got away with one, and they just crafted this ballpark that lefties can absolutely mash there. I'm looking at you, Curtis Granderson. And it just, to me, was so, annoying, but it was like, that's not going to happen every game. Like, that's just not the way the Yankees have been playing lately. I felt confident the Cubs would get at least one win over the weekend. And the fact that you got those pitching performances out of Matthew Boyd and Shota Imanaga again, it's so nice to have those guys in the stopper spots there. And also shout out to Daniel Palencia, who things were looking slightly sketchy on Saturday. That game had all the hallmarks of, the Yankees are just going to start mashing and all of a sudden it's going to be tied. And we're all going to be pissed off. And Daniel Palencia was like, no, that's not going to happen. He came in, slammed the door. Just again, want to give some praise to him. And again, to the Cubs for kind of, getting kicked in the teeth on Friday night, and then winning the last two games before the break to salvage a split road trip. And most importantly, to stay ahead of the Brewers, even though they've won 7 games in a row.
Yeah, when you're 1-3 to start a road trip, you can, that's desperate territory. And Boyd was just absolutely clutch. It's Arrieta 2015, not quite as good, obviously, because that was better than Sandy Koufax, but how clutch was it for him to come in and pitch 8 shutout innings?
He could have gone complete game, and frankly, I'm a little
with a 5-0 lead. You figured the bullpen was, the lead was safe for the bullpen, but had it been 2-0, maybe it would have been different. They might have left him in, but it got a little closer than we would have hoped for. But yeah, what a great outing from him once again, being the stopper in that rotation, which is such a huge thing to have. Mm-hmm. And then Imanaga closed out the first half of the season. And good for him too, because coming off the injury and some other things, he and some okay performances, he really looked very good. So
that
the Cubs were able
to used to.
Yeah, the Cubs were able to get out of it and find themselves in that great position. That there's a moment in the season in the good years when you can say out loud, if the Cubs go 500 the rest of the way, they'll win 90 or more games, and we are now at that point. So that's a nice spot to be in, frankly.
I'm sure we'll get to the second half scheduling, but there's a really great quirk coming up that the Cubs definitely need to take advantage of. But Jeremy, yes. I did not mean to step on your transition, which I'm sure was going to be a lot more artful than my clumsily Kool-Aid Manning through that wall there.
No, it's we will get there in a minute. I did want to give a couple more flowers here for this Yankee series before we move on. You mentioned Boyd being the stopper. He halted the Yankees' 5-game win streak with that performance there. So that was
with his
key.
10th win of the year. Good for him.
10th win of the year. Yeah, just a great performance by him. Our all-star he is not going to pitch at the all-star game.
It's the best of both worlds. He's an all-star, and yet we don't have to use him in the game because he pitched on Saturday, so we can use him on Friday, hopefully, right?
Exactly how we hoped last week when we discussed that it would go down. Yeah. It went down that way. Couple of other standout performances I want to call out. Carson Kelly in that Saturday game, he homered again. What Pat, it's been clutch having this type of performance from all 3 catchers on the roster.
Yeah, we were talking before the podcast about how I think this is the first time in my lifetime that I can recall the Cubs have 3 catchers who have OPS pluses of over 100. And Carson Kelly is just off the charts with an OPS plus of like what was it 158. And Amaya's 133, and even Reese McGuire's at 105. So it's 21 home runs so far from those 3 guys, 68 RBIs. I mean, that's great production from the catcher position, a position that we honestly went into the season looking at as maybe our position offensively anyway of greatest weakness, probably in the when you looked at the lineup. So.
Well, now the question, Pat, is what are you going to do at the catcher position after the All-Star break? Because you're going to have Miguel Amaya going out on rehab assignment. I would assume, of course, he's going to come back in and get regular playing time. But do you send Reese McGuire down, or do you want to maybe keep him as an extra bench?
I don't think you can send him down. I think he's out of options. I think you have to release him.
I don't think you can afford to let him go, considering that Carson Kelly has borne so much of that load so far this season. You don't want him to break down. I don't think carrying a third catcher is out of the realm of possibility, especially with some of the versatility you have versus some of the bench guys. I feel like that's a sacrifice you're potentially willing to make.
Well, when the Cubs are in such a fortunate position because between Justin Turner and John Birdie and Vidal Brujan and Nicky Lopez, they have all these guys who have been just so terrible that you can probably keep a third catcher and use one of them, whether it's Carson Kelly on days he's not starting or even Reese McGuire as a pinch hitter.
Mm-hmm.
And at this point, I'd play any of them at third base. Why not? As if you needed a late inning substitution. I agree. I don't see how with as weak as the bench is, I don't see how you wouldn't keep all three.
Agreed.
Let's stay there for a minute and talk about what we hope that the Cubs are going to do in the second half. You mentioned third base. That has been a problem. I had to watch Birdie. I had to watch not Matt Shaw in 2 straight games and wondering, am I longing for Matt Shaw, who can only play defense at this point?
At least
he's had a pretty rough offensive go of it. His batting average is under 200. His OPS is at 556. Eek. That's pitcher territory. You wonder when the Cubs do make moves. We talked about how they would need a bench player at some point. I still think that's probably true.
Mm-hmm.
But can they afford to have him play third base on a division contending team the rest of the year? I don't know. What do you think, James or Jeremy?
Well, see, I feel like the ability to actually play defense is worth something at third base.
Sure.
But I also feel like this
0.6 WAR apparently.
That is very true. I made a point to somebody the other day that I don't feel like Matt Shaw is in a position where he's costing you games, but he's not winning you games either. And I feel like when you're in a tight division race, you're wanting to make sure you've got all of your, T's crossed and I's dotted. You should be looking for a guy that can win you baseball games. And there is a guy out there who's going to be available at the deadline, and that's Eugenio Suarez. Like, the Diamondbacks there's no way they're just going to hold on to him. They're not going to be competing for a playoff spot. They have way too many injuries to deal with. And frankly, I'm tired of seeing Suarez bludgeon the Cubs every time he decides to play them. I would much prefer him to do the bludgeoning on behalf of the Chicago Cubs. And I know there are going to be a lot of teams that are going to be going out there and they're going to be throwing some really substantial offers at the Diamondbacks for a couple of months of that guy. But if you're talking about a player that can win you baseball games, that's a dude that I'm going to go out there and get. And I'm sorry, Matt Shaw, get your hitting together. I'm not giving up on you at all. This is purely a rental scenario for this season. And then let Matt Shaw have the PCA experience and let him try to get it next year. Like, that's where I'm at with Matt Shaw. And I know that the Cubs have other needs and they absolutely do need to address those needs. But I also know they have the assets to go out and address multiple needs at the same time. And I think third base is just staring you right in the face there.
It has to be multiple needs. Third base is one, as you laid out, James. But my God, do they need a starting pitcher in the worst way?
If not more than one, too, I will point out.
I am here for more than one for sure. And the top of the rotation guy, you currently are going to start a playoff series with Boyd, Imanaga, and
question mark,
yeah, TBD. And you need someone who can do that, and that's hoping that Boyd does what he hasn't done in a long, and that's stay healthy, right? Mm-hmm. So worst case scenario is you have Imanaga against the world, and so you should be thinking about 2 starting pitchers.
And even if it's one rental and one cost controlled guy, like that to me is exactly what Jed Hoyer probably wants to do.
Hard to believe that almost 5 years after the Yu Darvish trade, Cubs are probably going to end up trading Owen Cassie without him ever playing a game on the major league team because they got him when he was 12. And and here we are, almost 5 years later, and he seems, as he's tearing it up in the minors, to be inevitably
he's part of any trade. Absolutely.
This gets to kind of one of the issues that I have with the way they've built the team. For is much sacrifice, and for as hard as we worked, the team, the organization, build up a minor league system, right? And all the players that were traded, and all the draft picks and the poor seasons that led to higher draft picks. Here we are, and the Cubs came into this season sort of knowing, like, as they came into the season, that they didn't have all the players they needed, and then certain people like PCA and others rose to the fore, and the team ended up playing quite well, and now it looks like they're going to end up continuing to decimate their minor league system in order to get the players that they needed in the first place, through free agency or whatever other mechanisms they could have acquired them. And I guess in part that's what a farm system is for. But again, I'm also a realist. I understand that you're going to trade guys who you might be hearing the names of for quite some time now, and I sure hope that when they do get guys back that they guess correctly. I don't want to get a pitcher back who turns out to I don't want another Justin Wilson scenario, for God's sake, right? You gotta
and that's kind of what you worry about if you're going to go out and get a guy like Zach Gallen or Sandy Alcantara, where it's like they've been struggling badly this season, and
I would not give up Owen Cassie for Sandy Alcantara. Sorry.
I see that. Thank you for saying that,
Pat. It's been area of 7.
I have been repeatedly hearing that, and I'm like, no, I'm absolutely not doing that.
And no one else will either. So, and if they do, they're
exactly
they're
what
idiots.
I was going to say.
So,
no one else is going to give up that level for what he is right now. Do you think there's a possibility with a guy like Edward Cabrera, though, who is under team control and has been pitching a lot better and doesn't cost nearly as much money? Maybe then you have a conversation about a guy like Owen Casey. And I think that to me is the one non-negotiable. If you're trading Owen Casey, it better damn well not be for a rental. It needs to be for a guy that is going to be in your pitching rotation next season, because again, you're going to have, Justin Steele coming back at some point, but you also have a Jameson Taillon who's going to be, I think, the last year of his contract. You're going to have a Shota Imanaga who's not getting any younger. You've got a Cade Horton that's still kind of coming into his own in baseball. You absolutely need, to Jeremy's point, a guy who's going to be toward the top of your rotation. And that's the type of guy they need to include Owen Casey in a trade to go and get.
And as much as I understand the desire to go out and get a Mitch Keller, or is it Brad Keller? I always get him confused now. It's Mitch from the Pirates. We have Brad. We could have both. But the Mitch Kellers of the world, who do have several years left on the contract with the Pirates, that's the other thing, is he doesn't strike people out, and like, he's all right, but he's not like, he's a guy who can be a third or fourth starter, but he's not a guy you feel comfortable pitching a playoff game in as your number 3 starter, really. He's just a guy who's going to eat a bunch of innings for you and do okay. I don't know what the market's going to be like for a guy like that, but I really hope it isn't our top prospect, if in fact our top prospect's really good.
I just don't think it is, because you're going to have a lot of guys like that who are going to be available. And I think that that's a misconception I think a lot of people have about the bargaining position that the Chicago Cubs are in right now, is that they're going to be seen as the desperate team that's going to have to unload a bunch of assets to go get a starting pitcher. There are a lot of teams who are going to be looking at potentially trading guys, and the Cubs can use that as leverage. They can be like, look, yes, we need a starting pitcher, but I also guarantee you, if we offer this to somebody else for this guy, they're going to accept it. So you need to play ball with us. And I think that that's an area where the Cubs actually have a little bit of wiggle room to deal with. And I do agree with you, Pat. Like, I think that if you're parting with Casey plus some, it does need to be somebody who's a little bit sexier than Mitch Keller. Not to say that he's not an attractive man. I'm just saying that, you got to make sure that, you're doing the right things here for your organization, for sure.
And you look at, like, after the All-Star break, the Cubs have Boyd, Imanaga, and probably Horton. So then there's only like 8 games left before the trading dedeadline. So,
which is insane to think about, like how quickly
it's going with some of these teams too. It's not that crazy.
The good news is you've had like some teams kind of fall off of the pack, like your Baltimore Orioles and your Arizona Diamondbacks, and you're going to have legitimate sellers. And especially in the case of a team like the Diamondbacks, they're not tearing down to the studs to try to completely rebuild this thing. They probably will take guys who are closer to MLB ready, like your Ben Browns of the world and stuff. Like they certainly are going to want those types of guys as opposed to like your Class A guys that aren't going to be able to help them for 3 or 4 years.
Let me ask you both one last question on this front before Jeremy wants to move on, because I know he does. In all seriousness, with hindsight being 2020, would you trade Kyle Tucker today for Isaac Paredes, Cam Smith, and Cody Bellinger? Straight up today.
You mean current contract situation, right?
Yep, current contracts. So 2 months of Tucker versus Paredes for a couple of years, Cam Smith for 6 years, and Bellinger for 1 more year after this. Whether that's an albatross or a benefit.
You're essentially trading for Cam Smith is what you're ultimately like centering this trade around.
Well, and the other, do you get a third baseman too in Paredes?
Well, a guy who apparently can't hit at Wrigley Field, but he can hit at other places.
Would you make that trade today?
I know I want Kyle Tucker on my team at all costs. That guy is
I want him on my team. I just don't know if I want him at all costs.
I think you do. I couldn't.
There is
imagine.
a very high ceiling for what I would pay for Kyle Tucker.
Absolutely, and what he does
think,
for your lineup, just having that guy in that lineup, holy cow, it's so much different. We've seen so many seasons where the Cubs didn't have a guy like that's a superstar,
which is what he is. Yes,
yeah, he's got 4 WAR so far, which is quite good. The other 3 guys combined have 8 WAR, but then again, it's combined, right? So I mean, they're taking up multiple positions. Yeah. But it's a lot closer than I would have thought had you asked me that question in April. A lot closer.
I love Cam
lot
Smith.
Closer. I
love Cam Smith, and I think that having that kind of a guy to lock down third base and then to have Cody Bellinger in right field, like I think that that's a really solid group. And then in that scenario, you would inevitably need a guy like Paredes to potentially be a DH. And so I think that it's a very good question. I think I would take Tucker because it enables you to have more flexibility as opposed to locking in multiple positions on guys where I realistically feel like the Cubs could potentially improve upon. So I would go Kyle Tucker.
What about you, Pat?
I mean, this trade would allow you to put Bellinger at first and trade Michael Busch for Mackenzie Gore and Kyle Finnegan too. I mean, there are all kinds of possibilities out there.
Dude, this is the second time I've heard today the name Mackenzie Gore floated, and I'm like, let me tell you something. There is not a limit to what I would do if the Cubs could go and grab him. Like basically, the only untouchable player would be PCA in that scenario. Like you pull out all the stops to make a move happen like that, and then you ask questions later.
I don't think I'd make that move in isolation unless there was a second move I could make, because you would have an extra player basically that you would need to move, whether it's Paredes, whether it's Cam Smith, frankly, or whether it's Bellinger, or whether by having those 3 guys, it's somebody else. I mean, look, whose stock will never be higher than it is today? Seiya Suzuki.
Mm-hmm.
Ever. Just saying. I know nobody's like, well, I can't get rid of him. He's leading the league at RBIs. I'm like, yeah, I get it, right?
And then put Owen Casey in the majors and have him DH.
Exactly. Like the Cubs have guys like who could DH, Moises Ballesteros, guys who could DH or play outfield. They got guys, right? So I don't know. It is an interesting thought experiment. It's funny because Jeremy, like you, I would have said a couple months ago, absolutely not. I want the star player. Because that's how you win. Like that is how you win, right? Like the Juan Soto's of the world. Like you win playoff games because you have stars, and that's probably still true to this day, right? I would much rather have Kyle Tucker up in an important situation than Cody Bellinger or Paredes or Cam Smith. I mean, God help me, right? But also the Cubs do have holes right now at third base, and the one thing when we got Tucker was we knew that the Cubs were getting a guy at a position that they already actually had depth at the expense of a position that they didn't, and it was just third, right? And that's always the rub. And frankly, the fact that they're probably going to lose him in 2 months, and I'm going to be really bummed out if not only they lose him, which I fully expect they will at this point, but if on top of that, they lose like 2 playoff games and they're out of the playoffs after winning 90 some games this year. It's going to be really, and we've seen teams do that all the time. It's just, with the new modern format, we just haven't been in the playoffs under this format. So we haven't had to
right. There's a lot of randomness coming your way
but
here.
what we
I don't
did
know.
was, like,
Not saying
2015.
2020 happened, Pat. They
Yeah.
definitely lost 2 games in a row and got bounced. They were
Right,
in that
that's true.
format.
But that was almost like a mercy killing, I think,
Wow.
at that point. But I'm thinking
That Marlins series, I still have flashbacks to just
Ugh.
how, but that was like 2008 versus the Dodgers levels of what the hell are we even doing here, and why am I watching this game?
if you look at like 2015 though, when they played the Pirates, who won like 97 games or 99 games or whatever, and we beat them because we had the best pitcher in the history of baseball at that time, right?
Yep.
Like no one has ever been better than Arrieta was the second half of that season.
Yep.
Sucks for them, huh?
Well, that also broke them because they got Baumgartnered the year before. So
Yes.
this was like back-to-back years
I think
where
they had 3 years in a row where they got where they averaged like 99 wins and they
Yeah.
couldn't make it out of the first game of the playoffs. But that's the point, right? Like we're putting a lot of eggs in this Kyle Tucker basket right now. And if they were going to re-sign him, then that's a different scenario where I feel like, okay, I get it. Like then I would not make a deal like that because I feel like that's how you build a championship team. But if they're going to lose them, boy, you really pushing it.
I also think if they really are concerned they're going to lose Kyle Tucker, do you hold on to Owen Casey and just say this is our insurance policy and we need him around?
They may.
it
I mean, if they trade him especially for a pitcher who isn't in your long-term plans, boy, talk about setting yourself back a couple years.
That's something I cannot abide by if they decide that they're going to do that. Like if you're trading Owen Casey, it is a multi-year thing. It cannot possibly be we're putting all of our eggs in this basket. You have to think long-term with a deal like that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how all in they are on this season and this trade deadline coming up. Like you mentioned, it's scary how close we are to the trade deadline as we are already at the All-Star break. And then you have the Boston Red Sox coming in for 3 games to start.
Before we get to the Red Sox, can I say one thing about the All-Star game?
Yes.
Because I know it's your favorite event of the year, Jeremy.
I am no longer a child, so I don't follow the All-Star game.
Yes.
There's nothing for me. It's not for me. It's for the kids.
So here's one for you. So the Cubs have 3 All-Stars. They could have had like 5, right? Because Bush and Suzuki kind of got left out, right?
They got hosed.
Do you know how many ex-Cubs are in the All-Star game? Off the top of your head. Don't look.
Oh, I know a couple of them.
Just guess. Give me a number. Throw out a number.
Let's see.
There's
Trevor
probably 3.
McGill.
No, not names. Number. Just give me a number. Throw out a number.
I'm going to guess 6.
Jeremy?
I'll say 3 or 4. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, the number's 8.
Jeez.
8 ex-Cubs.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
There are
Here-
some injury replacements at play here, but go ahead, Pat.
okay, so let's talk 2014 to 2016 Cubs. Gleyber Torres, who obviously they traded.
They did.
Javier Baez,
Mm-hmm.
Kyle Schwarber, getting the band back together, aren't we?
Yeah.
love
Aroldis
those guys.
Chapman.
Yep.
Aroldis Chapman, right? And
He's
then
an
as we
all-star
move-
again? Wow.
Yeah, and as we move into further, remember Jason Adam?
Yes,
Yep.
sure do.
Yeah,
Yep.
he's on the Padres. He's one of 3 Padres relief pitchers to make the team.
Stupid.
Trevor McGill, the closer for Milwaukee. Thank you very
right.
much. And then let's not look too far away from multiple third basemen we could have right now. Isaac Paredes and Zach McKinstry. Remember
That's
him?
right.
Zach McKinstry,
Back
Chicago's
to
own.
Kinstry, an MLB All-Star.
So 4 guys really who could play third base on this list. 3 relief pitchers who could either be closers or like 8th inning guys for the Cubs, and Kyle Schwarber, who could be a left-handed monster bat. So anyway,
They didn't have the DH when they got rid of him, Pat. Just saying.
Yeah, never forget the return we got for Kyle Schwarber.
You mean a whole fat load of nothing?
Yeah. No, they gave him away for nothing.
Yeah.
For 0. Okay, sorry. I didn't mean to jump on your Red Sox talk.
No, I mean this is a great time. We will not be on next week. We are we take the All-Star break off. We're gonna do some housekeeping here. We're gonna get some things administratively in order for the show. We will be off next week, but
Pat's on probation, guys.
We will return the week after. So we will not be back to talk about this series against the Boston Red Sox. The Red Sox come to town, and Kansas City. This is a real chance here to win some games ahead of a Brewers series that's coming up at Milwaukee at the end of this month. And Milwaukee continues to not lose a lot of games. The Brewers 8-2 in their last 10 games as of the time of this recording.
Mm-hmm.
The Red Sox and Royals are not terrible teams, though.
The Red Sox have won. I mean, they've won 10 games in a row. They're in a playoff spot. Like, they have come out of seemingly nowhere. I don't think the Royals are bad. I just definitely don't think they're as good as they were last season. So that to me feels like your kind of advantage, like just in those like middle two series before that series against the Brewers, which coincidentally butts you up against the trade deadline. So you want to bring some dudes in. I would try to get them in-house before that series.
There is no better time to play the Red Sox than right after the All-Star break. They've won 10 in a row. Nobody wins 11 in a row, right? And on top of that, they had this little like 5-day like letdown in between, so the momentum is stopped. I mean, play them now.
Now is the time. Yep.
Yes.
Well, Friday.
And then the Royals hopefully the Royals will lay down like AL Central dogs that they are, but you never know. They're only 3 games under 500.
Yeah, I'm not saying they're bad. I'm just saying they're not like the Detroit Tigers. Like of the teams that are coming up, I am a lot more concerned about the Red Sox even after the layoff. And then, of course, going up to Milwaukee, which is never an easy task to go do.
And, Giolito might not even be on the Red Sox by the time we play him, so we'll see. But we will get to match up against our old buddy Garrett Crochet from the South Side.
Pitching
so
out
do you want
season.
A prediction for the 3-game series, Jeremy?
Or do you want one for 10 for the White Sox series and the Royals series too?
Let's do it. Let's do it all because we're not going to be here.
All
so
right.
Let's do. We're gonna go. What is that? That's 3, 6, 9 games. So 3 against Boston, 3 against Kansas City, and then 3 at the White Sox. 9 games.
I got this one down.
All right, let's start with you then, Pat. You're ready to go.
All right. So the Cubs are going to go 6-3. They're going to lose all the bullpen games, or at least 2 of them. And luckily, all these games are taking place in Chicago. 6 of them at Wrigley. So I feel good about that. I do think the White Sox are going to try to be pesky because the Cubs have beaten them like 400 times in a row now at this point. We haven't lost a game to those guys since like 2023, maybe. I don't know. It's a long time ago. But I still think the Cubs go 6-3.
James, where are you?
Screw it. I'm going to go 7-2. Like the White Sox be pesky all day long, but they suck. And they do not have the horses to keep up with the Cubs. They're not hitting enough to keep up with the Cubs. That is basically going to be Wrigley South for 3 games. I guarantee that stadium is going to be packed to the gills with Cubs fans, and they're going to be out there looking to make a statement. I don't give a crap if it's a bullpen game. I don't give a crap if they get somebody from the Joliet Slammers to come pitch against them. They're going and sweeping that series as far as I'm concerned. So I'm going 7-2. Let's just
Despite the fact that they just celebrated the 500th anniversary of their last World Series or whatever it was.
Yes, we will be. I'm in complete.
Oh, did you know the
agreement.
Pope is from the South Side and likes the White Sox? Did you know that?
Oh, no kidding. No kidding.
That's propaganda.
7-2. I agree. 7-2. They will heat up going into the 3 games in Milwaukee. This is definitely a winnable series. I want to see them. The Royals are under 500 in a division that contains the Chicago White Sox. So I want to see.
And the White Sox are not as bad as last year. This White Sox team is on pace to win 53 games this year.
Oh my God! What an
but they're not the 40. They're not the 45 win team that you're used to. Or 40.
Do they still have a better record than the Rockies, or have the Rockies bounced back yet?
The Rockies. I'm sorry. The White Sox have a 32-65 record. while the Rockies are 22-74.
Yeah, the Rockies are going to set the all-time record this year.
22-74.
They're 3-7 in their last 10 games, and they're still 22-74.
By the way, I saw a fun graph today. Remaining strength of schedule. The team with the hardest strength of schedule remaining in all of baseball, your Boston Red Sox, who have to play the Cubs 3 times. That's probably why.
It's not that they have to play the Blue Jays and the Yankees. It's definitely the Cubs.
The Cincinnati Reds are second, though, which gives me I kind of thought the Reds were starting to fade, but knowing that they have the second hardest schedule kind of seals the deal for me on that one. I don't see the Reds being competitive in the second half, like really competitive, like within 4 games at any point. I think 7 or something back. They're going to keep sliding back. The White Sox are third, by the way, in remaining strength of schedule. But NL Central wise, the Brewers have the 10th hardest remaining schedule. So that's okay, right? If you're a Cubs fan. The Cardinals are 22nd. So watch them kind of slink around for a while. The Pirates are 26th, but who cares? Like, if a tree falls in the forest, there's no one there to hear it. Doesn't make a noise. We don't know. The Cubs.
I've seen the Brewers listed as 5th hardest in some articles. So
let's say 3rd highest. I don't care. Like keep it going.
It's the team with the schedule in the world is what we're saying.
Yes.
The team with the easiest schedule in all of baseball. Dodgers are 27th. Twins are 28th. Royals are 29th, and the Cubs are 30th. So, and that's including those 3 Red Sox games. After those 3 games, it gets even easier.
It gets easier.
I would argue they've basically got like 2 or 3 tough road series left. Like, yeah, they play Milwaukee, but they also have Toronto and San Francisco that they still have to go to. Other than that, their road schedule is really easy. And I will point out, they don't have to leave the Midwest again until they go to Canada. They literally are in the Midwest for a month because their only road series are against the White Sox, the Cardinals, and the Brewers. That's it.
If you had told me at the beginning of the year that the Cubs had 6 games in September against the Atlanta Braves, I would have been upset. And I said, oh, shoot, they're good. But they're not.
They're not
by
good.
September of this year, they're currently 11 games under 500. Unless something really turns around, Atlanta might just be sleepwalking through September. There's nothing better than playing a team that had a disappointing season and is just sleepwalking to the finish line. That's the best.
Preach.
What we will be pointing to for many of our upcoming podcasts until we get to that date is that 5-game homestand in August, the 18th through the 21st, 5 games at home against Milwaukee for the last time this season. So it will be that will be a season-defining series against Milwaukee.
I think we've talked about the 2003 series against the Cardinals. Very similar vibe with the 5 games at Wrigley in the heat of a playoff race.
The 84 series against the Mets. Another good example.
Yep.
So lots to look forward to as the schedule plays out for the Cubs. It's looking easier. Looking forward to a lot
easier,
of
but not easy. Boys.
Not easy. Easier.
Yes,
that is correct. So
it's just the Cubs we're talking about.
We will transition now to how we close the show every week, where we profile a Cubs player from the past. Our guest chooses a Cub for us to profile every single week. We will be reaching out to our patrons over at patreon.com/Wrigleyville Nation. They support the show. They keep us ad-free for however many seasons it's been since you heard me do a shaver ad. It's been a while, and that's because we have patrons over at patreon.com/Wrigleyville Nation. They will be making a few picks. We're going to line up a few picks for them to make here as a thank you for how they support the show. So, James, this is your last pick for a little bit here. Let us know. You're on the clock, so start thinking about it. You don't have to let us know now. I was going to
say, I'm getting punished for coming on the show too often. And frankly, I really think your listeners have a lot to live up to because I've given you guys some absolute banger names.
You have absolute Matt Trueblood gave us Joe Pepitone, but you have given us some great names. And Stan Hack. So you've given us so you're right up there.
Matthew Trueblood names, I will point out.
So yeah, definitely looking for. I trust the patrons to deliver us some great choices as well. And you're on the clock to start thinking of a name as Pat tells us about this week's Cub who was selected last week by our guest Kyle. We are going to talk about Sandy Martinez, Pat.
Sandy Martinez did not have a long MLB career, nor a long Cubs career, but he did have three memorable moments, I think, that I was able to find. The first of which was that he and I share a birthday. So there you go. Oh. Just missed you by a day, Jeremy. Sorry about that.
That is correct.
He was born October 8th, 1970. In the Dominican Republic. He signed with the Toronto Blue Jays as an international free agent and made his major league debut at age 25, a little bit later than a lot of guys do, as a catcher. And then his life took a change for the better on December 11th, 1997. I don't know if you remember what you're doing that day, but that was the day he was traded to the Cubs for PTBNL, player to be named later, by the name of Trevor Schaefer. I don't know if you remember Trevor Schaefer. He never played in the majors, so unlikely that you would, but he played in the Midwest League for a little while. And there with the Cubs, Sandy Martinez was able to be the backup Cubs catcher in 1998 and 1999 before playing with Florida, Montreal, and then Cleveland and Boston after that, each for like a year or less than a year each. His highlight, the apex of his career was in 1998 with the Cubs, when he posted his one and only positive WAR year as a Major League Baseball player. He was at 0.1, and he was the backup catcher for what turned out to be a wild card. Remember the first year of the wild card, right? The Cubs and Giants. That was a big deal. Cubs won the wild card and played the Atlanta Braves. But I think the most memorable moment for one Sandy Martinez occurred earlier that year on May 6th of 1998. Cubs had a 20-year-old pitcher by the name of Kerry Wood, making his fifth major league start. First time Sandy Martinez had caught him ever in that game. And first pitch of the game, Martinez missed it because it had so much stuff on it, and it hit the umpire in the face mask. And apparently Sandy Martinez turned to the umpire and said, "Wow, get ready." and that led to what turned out to be one of the most memorable pitch games in the history of Major League Baseball. Kerry Wood threw 9 innings, gave up 1 infield single. Kevin Ory had a ground ball that went toward him, but he was unable to pick it up barehanded and throw to first. This is against a Houston Astros team that had like Biggio and Bagwell and Moises Alou and a lot of good hitters in it. And other than that infield single, Kerry Wood had 20 strikeouts and no walks, and he managed to do it on only 122 pitches. 20 strikeouts on 122 pitches is pretty efficient, frankly, since 60 of those pitches are accounted for already, right? He in the process of doing that, earned the Bill James has the game score card for pitchers. Kerry Wood earned a game score of 105, which is the highest, best game ever pitched, 9-inning game ever pitched by any pitcher in the history of baseball. So better than any perfect game, better than any no-hitter. This game was the best game ever pitched. When asked about the game afterwards, Martinez said that he basically set up low in the zone the whole game because he knew Kerry had a penchant for being a little wild and his ball moved a lot. But he said it was a really easy game to call because he could just call whatever pitch he wanted. Like, it could be 3-0, he called a slider, and it didn't matter. He said he only shook off Kerry only shook him off on pitches 3 or 4 times the entire game out of 122 pitches. He said it was weird. He'd never caught him before, but it was like they were communicating mentally. They were on the same page. Personally, I think Kerry was just in a zone, one of those zones, right? And Martinez, I think for them, the whole game just kind of slowed down. It was like one of those Kevin Costner for the love of the game moments where they were kind of in their own world there and everybody else was just a spectator and they could do whatever they wanted. You could call whatever pitches you wanted. But yeah, that was not only one of the most memorable games in baseball history, but one of the games that I remember quite distinctly because I was living in New York at the time, and I was listening to the Fan, WFAN, which was the sort of the equivalent of the Score sports station there. And I was working that afternoon, and I would follow the game at the time on like ESPN.com, but you would only get like scores. You wouldn't get like the play-by-play really because it was the early years of the internet. And they broke into the game a couple times to say, into the broadcasters for the sports radio show, the New York guys, right? There's this thing going on in Chicago. The Cubs would play the day game. Nobody else was playing the game, right? It's a weekday. And they'd be like, there's this thing going on in Chicago. This phenom, Kerry Wood, has struck out like 15 guys already or 17 guys. And finally, for the last 2 innings of the game, they actually did a live feed with WGN, and they just played the game on the New York sports radio station. That's what a big deal this was. Still get goosebumps thinking about it. Like, talk about appreciation for sports and for history and for knowing what's happening and for knowing something amazing that's going on. So everybody in New York who listened to sports radio that day got to hear the last 2 innings of the Cub-Astro game in its entirety. And I was one of those people, which made me very happy, of course, for obvious reasons. And I remember at my desk jumping up and pumping my hand, my fist in the air when they got the last out. And I had other sports fans around me who were also listening, New Yorkers, not necessarily Cubs fans. None of them were Cubs fans, but it was just one of those memorable moments, like where, especially in the era before internet and before you could stream things, when listening to something on the radio was actually like a normal thing. But everybody was sitting around my radio, listening to what was going on, and so that was, for me and for Sandy Martinez, quite the highlight. That was also the year 1998 when Sammy Sosa went on his home run barrage, as you may recall, against Mark McGwire, and the Cubs were able to clinch a playoff spot. The Cardinals were not. And we're able to, Sammy Sosa won the MVP. Cubs ran into a buzzsaw against the Braves in the playoffs, however, because they kind of spent everything they had just to get there. They lost the first 2 games of the series fairly badly. But then in game 3 of a 5-game series, down 6-0 in the 8th inning, Jose Hernandez got a base hit for the Cubs. And that brought Sandy Martinez to the plate against one Greg Maddux, who's throwing a shutout, like a 3-hit shutout or whatever he normally does. Sandy Martinez laces a base hit to put 2 men on, and then Lance Johnson follows up with a base hit, loading the bases in what would potentially become one of the greatest comebacks in MLB history, down 6-0 in game 3 of a decisive 5-game series against Greg Maddux, Hall of Fame pitcher, one of the best pitchers of all time. Unfortunately, the Cubs fell short and only got 2 runs that inning and then lost the game 6-2. But Sandy Martinez scored the last run by a Chicago Cub in the 1998 season. And the Cubs went down like lambs 6-2 after that. But he did everything he could. He pinch hit in the game, by the way, I might add. Since that time, Sandy has been spent his time in the Dominican Republic. He's actually was the manager of the Dominican Summer League Washington Nationals franchise for like 13 years. And that's how he spent his later years from 2011 up through 2023 in his 40s and 50s. And now he is retired, and I am unaware of any hobbies he may have, but I think he probably likes watching baseball and teaching kids how to play. And that is the story of Sandy Martinez.
Fantastic. Love anytime I can recount the Kerry Wood 20 strikeout game. Always fun to think about that. James, let us know who we are going to be talking about the next time we podcast.
So I kind of came into this wanting to go with a guy who was on the 1998 Cubs, and I was not going to let you guys kind of deter me from that goal with your Sandy Martinez nomination. And so you're going to have to go back to that well of memories again, but you were going to have to go back to the player who had the second best wins above replacement on that team after that season after Sammy Sosa. You're going to have to go with a guy who actually got a top 10 MVP votes in that season. Had 8 home runs, 53 RBI. He slashed 296, 380, 385. I am talking about none other than the key acquisition from the Philadelphia Phillies. I am talking about Mickey Morandini.
Ooh,
Yeah.
love it. Yes. Mickey Morandini, second
baseman extraordinaire.
That is
Absolutely.
right. Yeah, I mean, legit impact on that team too. Like,
Yeah.
I know that, it's easy to be like, Mickey Morandini, but it's like, no, he really did have a strong season for that team that year. He was a very consistent performer.
It's the Mickey Morandinis, Richie Hebners, Luis Salazar's, Luis Valbuenas of the world that win you, playoff or take you to playoffs. It's the extra guy, Jim Edmonds, you name it, right? Like the guy who you pick up, who carries you. Gary Gaetti, keep going.
Randall Simon.
Gary Gaetti had I think he had like a 2-WAR that season. Like
Gary Gaetti was incredible.
For the one home run in the wild card game, but he legitimately had a solid year for what he was. And
so, so it's those guys that help win championships, or at least get you to them.
That's right.
So I'll be interested in doing a deep dive on him.
There you go. You're back to 1998 again for the second week in a row. Hope you're ready.
And with that, we're going to wrap it up for this week. James, please remind our listeners where they can find your work on the internet.
NBCChicago.com. Download the app. Bask in our knowledge. Do a lot of Cubs stuff over there. Do a lot of severe weather stuff. I'm getting the sense we're going to have kind of an active weather pattern coming up at the end of July. So be safe out there, everybody. And then for my more frivolous pursuits, you can listen to the Home Runs and Handshakes podcast. Just recorded a new episode tonight with Frank Nova. You guys should definitely hit him up at some point to be on the podcast. He and Pat will go down some incredible rabbit holes, and I really want to listen to an episode of that.
I've never been invited, so it's hard.
We've only recorded 7 episodes. The season is incredibly young, Pat. We can certainly get you on at some point, and then you guys can, return the favor to Frank if you so choose. But absolutely love hosting that podcast. Love talking Cubs every week, and then I get to supplement it by talking to you fine gentlemen, whom I would say we've developed a nice rapport and relationship over the last decade. And yeah, it's really good stuff. Go back and listen to the back catalog of my episodes on this show. It's where I make some of my most cogent points. So above all, listen to my new podcast, but also listen to me on this one too, because these guys, they bring out the best in me.
The entire back catalog of this podcast, all the links to support our show, everything is available at our website, WrigleyvilleNation.com. And when you go there, if you want to support the show, we already talked about the Patreon. That's the best way to support the show. But another fun way to support the show is to get yourself some merchandise. If you're watching on the YouTube channel right now, I am wearing a Wrigleyville Nation t-shirt that you could get right now at our store. Go to WrigleyvilleNation.com. Go to any of our social media at WrigleyvilleNat across all the platforms. We have pinned anywhere you look. Go to the link trees there. They will take you right to the store where there's great deals happening right now. Shirts, hats, mugs, anything. We've got a whole bunch of stuff in the store. A couple of different logos, the flag logo, the classic logo, all available. Check out the store if you haven't at WrigleyvilleNation.com. And I mentioned the YouTube channel where you can see the shirt that I'm wearing right now. But if you go there, throw us the likes, subscribes, helps us work the algorithm so other Cub fans can find the show. And the YouTube channel is where you can get the video version of this podcast. If you don't consume your podcast via the video medium, that's okay. We still need your help, still need your support over there. Give us the likes, subscribes. Continue to get all that great audio content. Tell your Cub fan friends about the show. Show them how to subscribe to a podcast on the audio formats as well. If Spotify is your podcatcher of choice, you get the audio and the video both in the same player over at Spotify. So check us out on any of the platforms that it's available, and we appreciate all the support we've had as we take a mid-season break here for the All-Star Game as well, and we will be back in 2 weeks and finishing up every single week until we get to the end of the season, and then we'll talk about the playoff schedule, hopefully. So all things to look forward to as the Cubs season rolls on. Enjoy the All-Star break, everyone. And with that, we're going to call it a podcast. Pat, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Thanks again, everyone, for listening. And we'll talk to you again next time.